Exactly where and when German culture and history began is hard to say, probably impossible. But the small city of Quedlinburg dares to call itself the cradle of Germany. Sometimes in the course of research I stumble across something remarkable, in this case an unexpected connection with the town of my birth. This estate, to the southwest of Quedlinburg, was built in the 20th century on the site of an earlier monastery, the Wiperti monastery, dedicated to Saints James and Wigbert. The latter was from England, and, it has been claimed, was once an abbot at Glastonbury. The monastery is now gone, but its church still remains. It's not the original, that was demolished, and this one built in its place in the 10th century. The south portal, though, was added in the 1950s, a remnant from a different monastery. In the year 919, according to legend, the Duke of Saxony was hunting birds where these buildings now stand, when he received the news that he was to be the new king of East Francia. Henry I, known as the Fowler, was in fact crowned in Fritzlar, but his connection with Quedlinburg was real, and he was buried in a chapel on this hill. The Collegiate Church that now stands there was built rather later. It was consecrated in 1129. It hasn't changed much since, except for the choir, which was rebuilt 200 years later in the richly decorated Gothic style. That can't be seen from the inside. From 1938 to 1940, the Gothic elements were removed and replaced by what was claimed to be the original Romanesque apse. In the crypt are the tombs of Henry I and his wife Matilda, as well as those of abbesses of the secular monastery Matilda had founded here. Most of the buildings here now are more recent. This has the character of a Renaissance castle, although of course it was a secular monastery. It was secular because the women who lived here weren't nuns and weren't required to take up holy orders. As for Henry, his crowning 1,100 years ago was an important event in the history of Germany. Much later, none other than Heinrich Himmler developed a bit of an obsession with the ancient king, even claiming to be able to communicate with him. The Nazi regime's attempts to turn Quedlinburg into a kind of shrine were based on a hopelessly jingoistic interpretation of history, but it is true that Henry I laid the foundations of what was to become the Holy Roman Empire. Most importantly, he realised that he couldn't possibly impose a centralised monarchy. Instead, he united his kingdom in the form of a kind of federation of duchies. With a commanding view of the Harz a few miles away, the church sits on a geological feature known as a breached anticline. Nearby is the Münzenberg, today a small collection of houses. Its name might suggest there used to be a mint there, but no evidence of one has been found. There was a Benedictine monastery founded by Matilda, the wife of Henry I, in memory of her brother, and it's from this monastery that the portal of the Wiperti Church comes. Essentially, Quedlinburg was founded as a royal palace where the Ottonian kings celebrated Easter. They had huge entourages of up to 1,000 people, and they were housed in the area that became known as Westendorf. In 994, the settlement was given market rights, and the first markets were held where today the Marktkirche of St. Benedict stands. One of its spires was destroyed by lightning in the 16th century. The market rapidly grew in size, and this became the nucleus of the growing community. At its northern end is the town hall. First mentioned in 1310, it was extensively remodelled in the 17th century and extended at the end of the 19th century. The Roland statue is a fixture of many market towns in northern and eastern Germany and represents its status and privileges. This one was probably erected in the 1420s or 1430s, but in 1477 a failed rebellion against the abbess resulted in the statue's destruction. It wasn't put back together until 1869. Despite having its symbol of independence in pieces, the town grew. It wasn't always easy. Just south of the market, a bridge had to be built over a marsh. Later, when the marsh was drained, houses were built either side of the bridge, and this is that bridge, although you wouldn't know it but for the name. It led to an infirmary founded in about the year 1200. Very little of it remains. By 1900 it was in such bad repair that most of the buildings were demolished and the hospital itself relocated. The land it had occupied was sold to local businessmen who built ultra-modern buildings in the brand new Art Nouveau style. The marsh was known to locals as the Pulle, a word preserved in the name of a street leading to a part of town that is missed by many tourists. A track through the marshes gave its name to another road, the Stieg. A third road in this area has the intriguing name of Hölle, literally hell. It took its name from this building, described in 1233 as the house on the Pulle known as Hölle, but why it was called that is uncertain. Linking this area to the marketplace is the Shoe Yard, Quedlinburg's narrowest street, once home to the town's cobblers. As early as the 13th century, a new town was built to the east. It attracted new residents from the surrounding villages, driven here by political and economic troubles. Originally, it had its own local government. The town hall was located where this fountain now is, at the northern end of the marketplace. The two towns were united in 1330. Westendorf, by contrast, remained separate until 1810. One of Quedlinburg's more interesting residents was Dorothea Erxleben, born Dorothea Leporin in this house in 1715. She became the first woman in Germany to qualify as a doctor. She married and moved to live here. After her father's death, she took over his practice. Still, it wasn't until 1899 that women were officially allowed to qualify. Dorothea Erxleben was the first of a handful of exceptions. From 1860 to 1905, the Lord Mayor of Quedlinburg was a certain Gustav Brecht. During this time, a severe cholera outbreak hit the town. He responded by building sewage treatment facilities and a modern public water supply system, which is why a memorial to him stands near the old waterworks. Quedlinburg has around 2,000 timber-framed houses. After World War II, the plan was to demolish them all and replace them with modern East German buildings, but a lack of money ensured that this didn't happen. The houses were, however, neglected, and efforts to restore them are still continuing. Unfortunately, the area is not doing well economically. Most of the old state-owned companies went out of business after reunification. This factory once employed 3,000 people and is now being converted into apartments and offices. But one industry that has recently taken off here is tourism, and Quedlinburg is determined to make the most out of it. The town played a crucial role in the early history of Germany, and it is unquestionably photogenic. I would like to say a huge thank you to the administrators at the Collegiate Church for their help with this video, specifically for allowing me to film in the crypt. I should point out that I was given special permission to do this. There is normally a ban on all photography in the crypt, and it is very strictly enforced. Quedlinburg is in the state of Saxony-Anhalt, not far from the capital Magdeburg. It lies on the A36 Autobahn, which until recently was the B6 federal route, and this can be confusing because some signs still have the old numbers on them. By train, there is an hourly service from Magdeburg, which takes just over an hour. From further away, Quedlinburg can be surprisingly difficult to get to by rail. For example, from Frankfurt, a journey might involve 3 transfers. I stayed at the Akon Hotel, which is on the eastern edge of town, about 15 or 20 minutes walk from the station. It is easily the most upmarket hotel I've ever stayed at for a destination video, but they are used to taking bookings from tour companies. I booked myself directly online and things didn't go quite as smoothly as they should have done. However, the staff sorted the problems out quickly, efficiently and professionally. As with most tourist destinations in Germany, tourists are required to pay a surcharge, but in return you get this booklet, which is full of discounts for local businesses. It also acts as a bus and tram ticket, not just for Quedlinburg itself, but for the entire district of Harz. Most of Quedlinburg is reasonably flat, except for the two hills in the Westendorf area, including the site of the Collegiate Church. However, some of the cobbled areas might be tough going for some people with disabilities, and in addition to that, if you stray out of the main tourist areas, the streets can be in quite bad repair. Quedlinburg will be particularly attractive to anybody who's interested in the early history of Germany, and also boasts an unusually large number of timber-framed houses. It looks as if it's going to need the help of the tourist industry if it is to survive, but early efforts to make it more attractive to visitors are clearly paying off.